This is MSP Breakthrough, where successful MSP owners walk us through the pivotal moments that put them over the top.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Watson with Jonathan Crow and our special guest here, Dan Komis. And we're here today on MSP Breakthrough. And we're going to cover a number of things today. We're going to cover some of what Dan's done at TechRunner, some of the breakthroughs he's had when it comes to service delivery, when it's come to how he runs his business. We're going to talk about transparency. And I'd like to real quickly kick this over to Dan. And maybe, Dan, you can introduce yourself and tell us about some of these recent wins we're all excited to hear about.
Thanks, Tom. I'm Dan Komis, CEO of TechRunner IT. We're based in Long Island, New York. We just celebrated our 13th year in operation. We support over 50 locations and over 1,000 users. 13 years is a long time. I started the business by myself, solo. A lot of different challenges you come through when you start that way. Growing a business is about as tough a thing as you could do, as many people know these days. But I had a great experience the other day with two clients, both fairly new with us. You know, one was with us for 1 year, one was with us for 2 years. And times came for renewal, and I sent agreements to both, three-year agreements with pricing escalations, with increases. Sent over the proposals, and within 10 minutes, both came back, signed, sealed, delivered, no questions asked. That had never happened to me in the history of my career.
I don't know if it ever happened to me in my career.
So what are the things that you guys had been happening? Like, what do you usually expect in that kind of scenario? Because I know, Dan, the way you're saying this, I mean, you're surprised that it was that easy. How come?
Well, normally there's a little bit of back and forth, even some basic negotiation and pricing, or why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? In the proposal, I simply included, I was very upfront. I said, hey, here's the new proposal. We are increasing our rates. We are covering for some things that we have been supporting for you that wasn't necessarily included in the contract. I just laid it all out very plainly, very simply, and left no real conversation to be had, I suppose. Said, hey, this is it. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And, being upfront, being honest, being transparent, it worked in this scenario perfectly fine. Everybody was happy, and here we go.
Tom, this is something that we talk about on MSP live chats all the time. I mean, you have this advice where you talk about how you ran your business, and you advocate for longer term agreements, like Dan mentioned, the 3-year terms, escalating pricing kind of built in. And a lot of the reactions we get sometimes is, okay, that's great in theory, but how am I going to have this conversation with clients? And then stack on top of that, what happened last year? What's still happening with people? Some people are doing well, a lot of people aren't, and it's a tricky time. And so I think under normal circumstances, a lot of people can feel like this is an awkward conversation to have, and these are not normal circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, Dan, you've hit on something really important. I mean, I know as a former MSP owner, and I talk to many MSPs that simply aren't billing for things and let it go. Or then, you have something like this pandemic, and maybe you don't want to send someone a bill for something additional, something where they ran over, or, listen, a lot of mistakes happen. We know that technicians will put software on people's machines that they're not authorized to. You're paying for licenses then that aren't being billed. There's a lot of things that go into that. And I think what's so great is that you were able to send that out and communicate that in such a way that they understood it. And that I think you spoke to us before we started recording, that your services are at a level and your people are at a level that had a lot to do with them just signing and going forward with the contract. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that really, it made me smile in a big way, because if we're sending out price increases and the only response that we get is okay, that just says the world about my team and what our clients think about us and think about everybody here. And nothing makes me happier than great reinforcement that TechRunner is doing the right thing and people are loving it.
Now, do you have more of these to go back to and kind of, get people up to where they should be contract dollar wise? Is this part of something you're doing in your business right now?
It is. Yeah, it's part of the initiative for 2021. Like everybody, I think, increase net profit, right? So first place we're looking is internally. Say, all right, where are we missing things that we probably should be billing for? To me, it's a simple way to propose it to the client. Just say, look, you're getting this, you're supposed to be getting billed for it, you're not, so we're going to correct it, right? Leave the money on the table, I guess, or don't leave the church's money on the ground, as Michael Irvin says. So we are going back through all of our contracts as renewals come up, and we're trying to address these things. Part of what's made it easier is that I've made a very conscious effort to really engage all of our clients over the past year. While we weren't doing many projects last year, or we weren't talking about, major overhauls, I talked to the owners of our businesses last year, probably more than I ever have in my 13 years of operation. We wanted to know, you want to know what's going on. How are you? How is the business? More, how are you? What do you need from an operations standpoint, from a business owner standpoint? What can I share with you that has nothing to do with us generating more revenue? How can I help you in some way, shape, or form right now so that you're here in a year? Even if you just want to talk something through, good to talk to you, see you later. Spent a lot of time doing that last year, and you're really improving what were really already good relationships, but deepening those relationships with people in charge here. And I think that probably went a long way in, further strengthening the trust that they have in us and the faith that they have in our team, that when we say, this is what we need to do, the only answer is get it done.
Absolutely. Dan, when we've talked to other guests about breakthroughs, there's been this common element where a lot of times there's a catalyst, right? And a lot of breakthroughs involve shifting into an area or doing something that's kind of slightly outside of comfort zone or doing something different, right? And a lot of times those are instigated by outside elements. Like last year is a perfect example on what you're talking about now. Knowing that you need to reach out more, and that shapes the way that you're doing business in some better ways. And then you look back and you say, wow, that actually opened up things that I didn't fully realize it would at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's walk back a little bit further, because we, in prep for this show, we're talking about what were some of the big milestones for you, and you gave us some good things to talk about. One of those was around your service delivery. And this kind of ties right into what you're talking about with the contracts, being really more upfront and honest of, okay, guys, here's what we're delivering to you. Here's the value of it. Having kind of frank conversations. You mentioned there is a point where you realized you're kind of over-promising. Can you talk a little bit about when that moment was, kind of where that was in the stage of your company and what happened?
Sure. Our ticket request went up 50% last year by mid-May. The March to May impact was just significant. And our guys were, essentially just working as hard as they could, but as the months went on, burnout was happening. So we signed up with one of the popular third-party help desk services, and we implemented them, and they did a great job. However, our clients, even though we were resolving issues in less than 2 hours on average, responding in less than 15 minutes, our clients were like, this doesn't work for us. And not all of them, but there was enough people who were like, you're taking too long to get back to us. This isn't getting solved immediately. When I call, you don't immediately pick up the phone. Because now we had a separation between, our techs answering the phone. I'm sure anybody would tell you, never ever allow your technical staff to answer the phone, right? But that's what we had been doing, and we had a really frank conversation with the CEO of that company, who was like, Dan, our team is doing great here. We're getting all the stuff done. All of your tickets are getting resolved in an incredible fashion, but what have you been doing for these people in the past if they're not happy with what we're doing? So we had created this expectation that we were just going to get everything done in 10 minutes. And, you were always going to speak to a technical person, right away on the first call. And, even if they would call us and it would take us hours to get something resolved, they were happier with that than if they called, didn't get a technician right away, and it got solved in 30 minutes. So it was very interesting that, you know, there was an over delivery there, but I think it was a more of a customer expectation, right? It wasn't, you know, we pick up the phone, we promise we'll get it solved in 30 minutes, or, you know, or your service is free. But that was the impression, that was the customer experience that they were getting. So people were satisfied. But we really, you know, had the chance to look at our numbers and go like, you know, we're delivering at a level that is impossible to grow with. It's impossible to scale. We have to put some separators in here while maintaining that customer experience and getting the work done.
Did you find that they needed some kind of touch, and then that gave you a buffer before you would have to really get started on the ticket?
Yes. Yes, we did. And for clarity, we have since abandoned that service and moved to we use an answering service now between our clients and our technical people. And now you know, we've restored the customer experience in full. But yes, they want to talk to somebody. They just need to be heard. Like anything else, you just want to make sure your issue is heard and someone understands, right? I always say we're kind of in the business of everything's going to be okay, right? So you get that done, and then that next touch, as long as it's reasonable, you know, our SLA is 2 hours for remote, for a P3, right? We're always under, you know, if it goes over an hour, I'd be shocked. You know, we typically hit 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think for people listening, I mean, what we're talking about is someone that answers the phone, even if it's an answering service, takes down some information, listens to what they say, and then generally the person calling, the user, gets some type of email confirmation that a ticket's been created. So there's 2 touches before they actually get contacted by a technician. But that way, those 2 touches will usually my experience was that will usually give you as much as 3 hours buffer for even a severe problem on a machine.
Yeah, that's how we're running it. 3 hour buffer. Ooh, I don't know. We're in Long Island. We don't get those buffers here.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, because, you know, one of the common things that we hear a lot with people, especially smaller shops just getting started, you know, everyone wants to make prompt customer service their differentiator. Like everyone wants to say like, hey, we're super responsive. We're the best customer service you'll get. And this is an interesting story to say, like, okay, you got to be very mindful about how you set expectations, because you actually, you know, especially early days, you want to win everybody. You want to promise the moon. And then that can come around in the end, especially when you're trying to scale and grow. There's some things that may need to be adjusted.
You're 100% on the nose. You know, it's hard for anybody to start up, you know, your one-man shop and then, you know, grow it into a business, right? Like, do you have a job or do you have a business, right? Two completely different things. And even though, you know, you may be growing into a business, a lot of people, I think, still have that mentality that they have a job, right? You can have 10 employees. You might still think, well, you know, this is still my thing, right? No, at some point you have to find the ability within yourself to like see your business as an entity, as its own living, breathing thing, at which point you're a function of it. You're a huge piece of it. You're the most important piece of it, but you have to let it be, you know, its own thing. You have to, you know, let it fly, right? When you hire people, you make sure you hire the right ones and the people who represent your values, the people who match the culture of your company. And if you maintain that path, you can still see your logo and feel the same way about it 20 years down the line as you did the first day you had it made.
Are you still
Dan? I'm looking at.
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, well, I was going to go on to something else. I've got in my notes here. I've got about trusting the team to get it done. I got to tell you that every one of these that Jonathan and I do, we're talking to MSP veterans like yourself. And one of the breakthroughs I like to ask about is stepping away from tech work, or we've already heard like phones. What are the things that you have stepped away from that have now allowed your business to scale? And tell us what that looked like, and kind of some of the struggles that occurred and what has been the result.
I mean, the first thing everybody, mentions is limiting your technical work, right? That takes up the most amount of time. So you have to remove that from your plate. And as I've hired more people, we have 5 full-time people now. I've been able to slowly but surely, as more people came on, remove myself. That step alone, has 10 steps within it, right? But documentation is like, it's the most popular word in our industry these days, I feel like, but it's the most important one. You have to get that stuff out of your head to your team so that you now exist in your documentation system. You don't have to exist at the other end of the phone. You don't exist at the other end of Teams or Slack. All of that, it's like artificial intelligence transfer. Just get it out of the person, put it into the system. Now Dan lives in the documentation platform. So that's huge. And training our techs to create the documentation as well. Being clear that every contribution that anyone makes is a 10-fold contribution down the line to the company. The more we add to it, the more it helps the next person, the more it helps you. Do you want to be a level 2 tech for the next 3 years? Do you want to be a level 3, 4 tech? You want to be an engineer? Great. Keep writing great documentation. You will reinforce that knowledge within yourself, and ultimately create the job for the next person, right? And then hand it to them. You'll know how to give it to them. So, from the technical side, documentation is the most important thing. From the human side and the, oh my God, this is my company, things are going to break, I can't, I'm the only one that can do this side of things that we all have. Getting comfortable with the fact that even if the technical part of the work gets done 100%, it's not going to be the same as if I did it. The experience with the customer, the conversation, the maybe the speed, maybe it's going to, and honestly, it should be the speed. If I have somebody on my team taking care of something that I could do in 10 minutes, it probably should take them a half an hour. Maybe if it's something I've done for 10 years and I know like the back of my hand, you can't expect somebody to have that same inherent knowledge, experience, and confidence as, the same way you do. 10 years down the line, you're right. Maybe it's going to take them 10 minutes. So that's hard. That's hard. You have to let it take longer. You have to let it go wrong. You have to, you can correct it when the right time comes, but like you have to let people sink, and that's just a really, really hard thing to do.
Dan, can you put yourself kind of travel back in time a little bit to when you're first going through this process, when you're first hiring on, you yourself are kind of still in the trenches, you're still doing some technical work and you're starting to let go. Anything kind of jump out at you where, you were trying to do this? Was it easy from the get-go for you, or?
No, not even a little bit. And I think that's probably the case with most people in my position. Like, I think one man, solo MSPs who start growing, like, are good at the same things. You're very organized, you're on top of stuff, you're on time, you're multitasking, like it's a personality type thing, but the first thing when I really had a full-time team going, the first rule we put in place was, Dan doesn't call customer service. So we eliminated that. So that was like my big, okay, this is my first technical work I'm stepping back from. Now that may seem like it doesn't answer your question. However, when I would find people on the phone for 3 hours with technical support for a vendor or, an ISP, I would come out of my office and be like, what the hell are you doing? How are you on the phone for 3 hours with these people? Can't you just get through them, cut through the muck, just get it done? And then I kind of circle back. I'm like, the reason we put that rule in place is because sometimes it takes 3 hours to get through to somebody who can actually get us to a point where they solve the problem. So
Yeah, I mean, that's a great one, Dan. I mean, I like to talk about stepping away from things. One of the big ones I recall, maybe you can tell us what you related to, was when you stepped away from individual clients, the ones you had brought on early,
Mm.
and they call up and have a problem and they want you to fix it. And then can you tell us, for our audience out there, how you handle that effectively to be able to, and that's a tough one, because you're trying to pass them on to someone else in your company and it's not going to be done exactly the same way you did it.
Yeah. So yeah, that is super tough. I still get emails every now and then. Now, when I get an email from a customer about a technical response, I just move the email into our support mailbox, makes a ticket, and it goes to service team. No questions asked. I don't address it.
You don't even reply to it. That's
No.
that's part of your strategy. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. At this point, no. But to roll back and answer your question, of course, it took a long time to get there. So I guess we would start with like warm transfers. Originally, if it was a thing that only that we didn't have a mature process for, I guess. You're like, okay, let's engineer. Okay, this client called. Client has a problem. They want us to fix it. All right, engineer, get the client on the phone. Get me on conference call and get the client on the phone. Let's talk it through together. Okay, great. What's the problem? Okay, we get it. Have the engineer go through the work or go through the issue. All right, great. Engineer's going to take care of it. We'll make sure it gets done. I'm gonna hop off. You guys finish up however you need to. Thanks. Bye. All right. So reinforce that trust, and we do that for VIPs and the owners and things. Obviously not everybody who's working there, but for those people that we're worried about, one by one, just build their trust in the team.
That's great.
Yeah.
I've got here, one of the things we talk a lot about, and we create a lot of content for prospects and partners out there, are contracts and agreements. And it always seems like a big stumbling block early on for what you'd even call maybe an IT service provider, maybe not yet an MSP, to put clients under contracts, to require them to do so. And I've got some great notes from talking to you here about it, of how it's an opportunity, and how agreements are an opportunity for both sides, and kind of how you position that.
Yeah. I had a very significant breakthrough about this about a year and change ago. That negotiations should be a positive experience, and a contract is simply an opportunity to have a meeting and set expectations for what the client needs and the services that you provide. It shouldn't be it should be a positive experience. What do you need? Here's what we do. Let's align those things and be very open about like how we're going to solve all those problems or answer all those questions that you have. And then it really prevents a lot of issues and surprises moving forward. I've found with new clients and new companies who have never used like an MSP service before, that it helps them really understand what you do. Actually for everybody, it helps them understand what you do. But the newer clients, sticker shock's a huge thing. People are like, oh my God, we're paying this much money for what? I don't even know what you guys do. Well, that's the opportunity to lay it all out and then find out if they're a fit or not too. Maybe they're not at the time. Maybe this is a conversation that you need to have a year from now because their business isn't in a position to actually require the services that you provide. But yeah, negotiation and contracts, transitioning my mindset on those to be real opportunities for open conversation. Breakthrough, times 10. Don't get the lawyers involved. Let's talk about the terms. Let lawyers be lawyers, but the terms, it should be easy. What's the spirit of the agreement? What are you trying to accomplish? Let's put it in words. We'll write it down. We shake hands, but we got to sign it, and then we get to work.
It sounds like there's some of the biggest challenges when you're navigating how to go from you one man IT service delivery guy to becoming an actual business. Like you were saying, do you have a job or do you have a business? Is really trying to get clarity around, okay, what is it that I'm actually providing? Passing that clarity on to clients, also getting clarity around who are the types of clients that we want and that we're going to be able to succeed with. And it sounds like a lot of the breakthroughs that you're talking about kind of have been a march towards that. Let's get more clarity about who we are, what we're doing well, and who we do it for.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Transparency is at the core of our business. It's at, I think it's the core of any business that's going to grow. You have to be able to understand what you do, understand why you do it, and understand the value that it delivers to your clients. And if you can understand all of that, then it should be easy, right? Like, you should be able to do it, you should be able to sell it, and people should be able to buy it. It's not that easy, but idealism, that ties into transparency a bit too.
Yeah, and I mean the transparent element, I mean it does have requirements, right? Like you just pointed out, you have to have a clear understanding and be able to articulate what you want to be transparent about. Otherwise, it can be really squishy. Talk a little bit. I mean, you've come on our live chats. We've had conversations. You're great about just talking with other MSPs and kind of sharing your experiences and sharing what you're doing, building your team. There is that transparency element where you've clearly been refining with your clients what you're providing. You're going back to them. You're establishing, okay, here's what we're really doing to work together, and you're doing this among your team as well. But yeah, maybe talk a little bit like the journey with TechRunner through last year, even before that, going up to what it is. You mentioned culture, kind of TechRunner becoming larger than you. How have you gotten there, and what's it looking like now for next steps? That's a big question, Dan.
It's a lot there. A lot there. Well, let's talk about so first 6 years of the company, I was a one-man show. I had some support. I had some people, other local MSPs, friends in the industry, supported each other, grew. I had a job, right? I took that job as far as I could from a burden perspective and a financial perspective. I had maxed out all my hours I could possibly bill for things. I was a walking mess, and it was okay. I'm either going to get myself to a manageable place where I can work and make the money I need, or we have to really make this, we have to turn this into a business. Excuse me. So it was at that point that we, started my first hires. My first hire was a awesome dude, terrible mistake. It's like, okay, let's find somebody else, go through the process. Ultimately wound up with some great people. And the more honest I was about how I felt about the company and what I wanted from anybody who's gonna be part of the team, the easier it became to find the right people. And that was something from a business perspective that I had always been like coached against from like traditional, boomer business people, whatever you want to call it. Like, you have to be a shark, you have to, be vicious, you have to, squeeze people as much as you can. This, the whole, profit first, that's what's important. Make sure you take care of you, make as much money as you can to get out. Like, it's not it's not who I am, and this company is a reflection of who I am. And the more I embrace that, the more I was able to find people who match that. And, it's fulfilling. It really is. It really is. So, fast forward, great team last year. I went through the entire year with everybody. At the end of the year, I said, all right, we reviewed the whole year and how crazy everything went, how busy we were, how much we needed extra help, the experience with third-party Helpdesk. We brought back a former employee of ours who had the opportunity to return to us. He was our service delivery manager. Again, can't understate or can't overstate the impact that his return to us has had on the company. And everybody, everybody's really proud of what we accomplished last year. Everybody feels really, really good about it. And we gave everybody the opportunity throughout this to say, you know, should say the idea of TechRunner has grown with the addition of people, like not just the actual company and the headcount, but like the idea of what we can be has grown far beyond the sum of our parts now. And we gave everybody, you know, a 1-year plan for the company with like literally a roadmap or an organizational chart with all roles, responsibilities, where we are now. We made one for next year. So where do you want to be? We made one for 5 years. So where do you want to be? And everybody picked one, and it was completely, it fits their personalities. It fits their strengths. It fits the company need, you know, to say we found the right people. I couldn't believe that more. So it has really, that has helped me as well see TechRunner as something so far greater than, you know, Dan and his Honda Element 12 years ago. You know, it's something that I'm really, really happy for, grateful for, and proud of.
That's great. So where do you what are your big goals for this year? I mean, what are you kind of focused on? Where do you think the growth will come from? I know this is something that people tuning in are wondering, how do you grow a business, you know, at these times? Things are a little different.
So the first thing was what we mentioned earlier, was finding, you know, lost revenue, you know, things we should have been billing for. Let's make sure we capture those and get them in, because it's the easiest way. It's probably not significant money, but, you know, a few $100s here and there, we're a monthly recurring revenue model. It adds up to a, you know, hey, if it covers the internet bill for the year, look, that's what, you know, we found it. We should have that revenue. I've been networking a ton, you know, in the past year locally. You know, I've really made it a mission to find other like-minded, growth-oriented business owners in my area. I'm part of a couple of groups. And actually, I met somebody yesterday who, like, I can't wait to sit down and talk about his business with him. I don't care about doing business with him. He's just so right in the moment of taking his business to the next place, and he knows what he wants to do. He just doesn't know quite how to get there. I want to move into his house and just be like, this is what we do. You got it. You got all the pieces. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. You know, this stuff fires me up. But you know, continuing to establish our brand locally. You know, I really try and push our social media presence, and, you know, make small videos, conversations and comments with people in my community, business owners, just engage and meet people. You know, I've been really at it for a little over a year now. And I look back and I go, oh my God, I have all these contacts, relationships, and, you know, referral opportunities here that I can't believe I have. You know, a year ago, I didn't have any of this. You know, you put the time in, you keep talking, you keep strengthening relationships. Ultimately, when the opportunity comes up and someone thinks of IT, thinks of, you know, technology, like, oh wait, has to be TechRunner, right? As far as targeting and really like really going after business, we're really looking at local co-managed opportunities right now. That, you know, we've actually gotten contacted by companies for, you know, a lot of independent projects right now, not necessarily ongoing services, but that's how those relationships start. You know, we show up, we do a great job on a project, we maintain a relationship, and then potentially when the opportunity arises, again, you know, maybe somebody from their team leaves, they go, oh, do we want to, you know, hire another full-time, you know, help desk technician? Or maybe this is a part of our operation that we could subcontract or partner with Dan's firm for better service at a lower cost.
Absolutely. Hey, going back a little bit to the networking portion, is this something that you've always just been get drawn to or been good at? It sounds like you're kind of talking about like how it was just this past year. What was this, like a conscious effort decision? You decided like, okay, I need to get out there and start doing this more?
Yeah, it was. I hated Chamber of Commerce stuff. You know, local networking groups, what's it, a BNI? Like, I hate the idea of transactional business relationships. And if, because we're not a transactional company, like we are a long-term, MSPs are long-term relationships. People, what's the average retention in our business? Is it over 10 years now? Like, so I never really saw I had any value there. And the few that I'd gone to over the years, a lot of them were full of people looking at like, oh, it was only $25 to get this meal and a couple of drinks. Like, not for me. It didn't fit TechRunner, didn't fit me, didn't fit TechRunner, so I didn't do it. But as the idea of, I think culturally, at least around here, the idea has kind of shifted from transactional networking to like business development, and digital marketing and social media marketing has become something that everybody has to do. So it really has kind of opened it up, I think, as opposed to that little closed door session, like, oh, go to your local chamber. Well, you don't know anybody. Guess what? You're going to either stand in a corner while everybody who knows each other is going to talk about chicken parmesan, or you're going to force yourself into conversations that people are uncomfortable having because you're not part of the group. So like, well, I'm not going to force myself into something that you guys don't want me here. That's fine. I have no, that's fine. This is your club. This is your club. But I think a lot of people feel that way. So with the explosion of social media marketing, and especially last year, you have to have an online presence in order to really, get your business known, let alone get new business. I found a lot of new relationships, or I built a lot of new relationships with like-minded people. And I think that's the core of it, right? You have to find those like-minded people who don't want anything from you, or you don't want anything from them, right? That has to be the thing. Like, I want to grow my business. If you want to refer somebody to me, I love that. That's wonderful. I couldn't appreciate anything more, but that's not the core of our relationship. The core of the relationship is helping one another. The business should come from that.
And Tom, this goes back to something you talk about all the time, and what we talked about earlier. Dan, how do you have the time to actually go about doing that? Because you actually have employees that you trust, and you're not in the weeds all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to build the business to a point where it can sustain that. Where, I'm definitely more than 50% out of my daily operation. At least like, less than 50% of my day is focused on like active service delivery for the business. I may check in on something, talk this and that. I should say it might even be 25% at this point. So I have 75% of my day to work on all of those business development opportunities. Sales, marketing, customer account management really falls into that too. But yeah, like it's really hard to get to that point. But if you have a goal and you're clear about the goal and you're open about the goal with everybody who's, a part of it, you show everybody the big picture, you can get it done. You can get it done.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That sounds like you've started to carve out a good amount of time to spend on business development, networking, because it takes that. And Jonathan, we talk a lot about how many touches does it take, to get a new client, and it takes a lot. You're building a relationship, and it's kind of one of these things where I talk to people and they try something and then they stop doing it. And so they get a couple touches in, they start to develop relationship and contacts, but they don't continue with it. It sounds like you've got a pretty good cadence going on of regular content going out and touches and developing relationships with people. And I know that reaches a point, when you put enough time into it, that it'll kind of snowball and probably create a lot of business this year, I would think.
I sure hope so. I sure hope so. But I have to that point, I have noticed, as the relationships have strengthened and as we've spent more time with these people, virtually or otherwise, the opportunities, they're taking form, they're taking shape. Like we're now getting to those points where like, oh, you know what? I think it might be a good idea for you to talk to this person. 6 months ago, even though you have the same good relationship with the person who is referring that person, it might not even make sense to them at that point. So it is definitely it's a long-term, I'll say it's a long-term play, because it's a career-long process. You have to just
it
keep.
takes a long time to gel for people that you're talking to start to put together exactly what you do and where you fit into what they do or their referral network. It takes a
Right.
long time. I mean, it's often a couple of years. It sounds like you're pretty well into it over the last year. And so I think this second year is going to be great for you.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, people do business with people, right? First and foremost. And once you get that, once you realize that the business is possible, then you continue nurturing that relationship and ultimately hope it, if it gets to a point where an opportunity comes up, that it's there for you. And it should be that much easier to convert, right? No one, you don't do business with people quite the same like when they come from a really strong referral. Your best friend tells somebody, hey, Dan and TechRunner are the firm. Like they're the IT company to work with. Don't go anywhere else. If he has that level of relationship with the person he's making that referral to, there's no conversation. Send over the proposal. It comes back signed. No questions asked.
Thanks for listening to MSP Breakthrough, brought to you by Ninja RMM. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, or give us a review.